Hey everyone, so I'm in Uttarkashi. You can see the background of my cafe. Maybe I can move it a little bit. Here you can see the mountains. So much light. So I read one book here which is called Cave in the Snow by Vicky Mackenzie. It's about this Buddhist nun. She is basically an English woman, and I think only the second Western woman to be ordained as a Buddhist nun, maybe in Mahayana tradition. So she's done some amazing sadhana. She went to Lahore in the 1980s, and she went to a cave really high up, many kilometers above from the village where her monastery was. And in that cave, she did many years of isolated sadhana. So it was very interesting. This is an amazing read. And this person, Tenzin Palmo, that's a Buddhist name. She has a monastery now. She started her own monastery near Birbiling in Himachal Pradesh near Dharamshala. So this book is really amazing, and it's especially great for to get a perspective on women's spirituality, because a lot of the spiritual stuff, especially life of monks and all, it covers men largely, the challenges men face and all. But this is an amazing one which talks about the women, what challenges they face. I was already aware of some challenges because I met some women Buddhist monks in Thailand. They are from the Theravada sect, and they obviously told me many things which were very shocking for me. So, and this is a Mahayana, that is the Tibetan Buddhism. So, this Tenzin Palmo was ordained under that. And I'm just going to read a specific section where it focuses on inspiration for women spiritual seekers. So in this, they basically, the whole book, they go through and tell about all her hardships and stuff. And then there is one section which specifically talks about who could have been her inspiration. And so there are a few of the deities, female deities of Buddhism, which they've covered, which I want to read out, and then I'm going to skip. Then they've given some stories of actual Buddhist, like legendary figures many years back who attained great spiritual heights. But after that, they go into something very interesting where they actually talk about the difference between men and women in their spiritual quest. So that is a really good articulation, and it's very rare. We don't get it too often. I actually happen to have another source who is giving me talking about the differences in what women need to focus on as opposed to what men need to focus on, but it's really rare. It doesn't happen very often. So just starting with the Buddhist deities, they first talk about Vajra Yogini. There was powerful Vajra Yogini, bright red and standing proudly naked in a circle of fire, firm breasts thrust out, legs apart in a mystic dance. Here was a feisty female to whom all modern women could relate. Vajra Yogini was queen of her own realm and interceder for no one, an unusual accolade for a woman in her position. The Christian Queen of Heaven, the Virgin Mary, being hailed as the arch interceder. Alone of all the tantric deities, Vajra Yogini was so independent that she was depicted without a consort. Instead, she carried her mystic lover around with her as a ritual implement slung over her shoulder like a handbag, transforming it into a living man whenever the divine occasion demanded. There was the exquisite Kuan Yin, labeled regarder of the cries of the world for her all-embracing compassionate heart. There was the mighty Prajna Paramita, the mother of all Buddhas, sitting strong and solid on her lotus throne, embodying absolute wisdom out of which all things arose. And there were many more. Loved and worshipped though these female Buddhas were, however, there was no evidence that they ever existed in human form. As a result, they stayed on the level of archetypes, idealized figures, female icons, forever perfect and perpetually out of reach. Then there were stories, fabulous tales of daring do and remarkable spiritual achievements carried out by just a few women who had lived in the land of snows and who had risen to eminence in that overtly patriarchal culture. So then they speak about these legendary women who are supposedly real. I'll speak some of the names. There is most famous by far was Yeshe Tsogyal, also known as the Sky Dancer. Born in 757 AD to a noble family, Yeshe Tsogyal from an early age showed all the signs of spiritual precociousness. Her avowed intent was she declared to become a Buddha in one lifetime. And finally, after many vicissitudes, she eventually met the man who saved her life, who was Padma Sambhava himself. Then the next one, then there's they've given the story of Yeshe in a little detail, and then there is this other one. More plausible was the other great heroine of Tibetan Buddhism, Machik Labdron. Although she also belonged to an entirely different age, having lived from 1055 to 1145 AD, she was responsible for founding one of the most important and widespread rituals still practiced to this day. At a purely external level, chode is a blood curdling stuff. In essence, it involves the practitioner taking him or herself off to a charnel ground or cemetery in the dead of night and there surrounded by decomposing corpses and the stench of death, visualizing the systematic dismemberment of his or her own body right down to the eyes, brain, and entrails. When it is done, all the pieces are visualized being put into a pot, boiled up, and offered to all beings to satisfy their every craving. In her day, Magic Lapdron's exceptional talents inevitably caught the attention of the patriarchs who, roused by jealousy and fear, thought to discredit her once and for all by challenging her in the very public arena of spiritual debate. This was a speciality of Tibetan Buddhism, the platform on which all the scholar saints had to prove themselves. Their plan dramatically backfired. The story tells how Magic Labdron made intellectual and spiritual mincemeat of her male opponents, thereby establishing her permanently as one of Tibet's most important spiritual figures. And the other interesting thing is that Magic Labdron, unlike other women yogis who leave, don't get married, or they get married but they don't lead that household life, this lady, she did have children and she was married. But whenever she wanted to go on meditation retreats, she just left her kids in her husband with her husband and went. So then there was another simple young girl of the 13th century called Jomo Menmo. You can search these people's names. I'm not going into all their story. There was another one was Ayu Khadro, was a woman of her own time. And yeah, there's a book also on Ayu Khadro. So you can just, it's a very interesting story, but you can search on it. Now, from Tenzin Palmo's perspective, these few women, inspirational though they may have been, were of little help to Tenzin Palmo. They lived far away and long ago. When it came to finding out what female spiritual qualities looked like, she was having to make her own journey of discovery. Over the years in her cave, she came to a few conclusions about women's strengths and weaknesses. This is the really interesting section because I've never seen this kind of stuff being written so clearly in other spiritual books. Though again, I'm not a voracious reader of spiritual books because it's all about experience and all that. But this was very good for me. So this is what Kelvin Palmos says. To me, the special female quality, which of course many men have as well, is first of all a sharpness, a clarity. It cuts through, especially intellectual ossification. It's very sharp and gets to the point. To me, the Dakini principle stands for the intuitive force. Women get it in a flash. They are not interested in intellectual discussion, which they normally find dry and cold with minimum appeal. To women, that's the long way of going about it. They go through the back door. This reveals itself as women being more practical in their approach, less abstract and idealistic than men. They want to know what can we do. They are not entranced by theories and ideas. They want to be able to crunch it between their teeth. She said, of course, Prajna Paramita is female, she added, referring to the mother of all Buddhas. She is the perfection of wisdom, which cuts away all our concepts and desires to make something very stable and settled. We build up our ideas, we try to make them concrete. She cuts away, cutting. She cuts things back to the bare essentials. This I find I can very much relate to, and that is why if you see on this channel, I never talk theory. I am talking either somebody's experience, so we get to know the other person, or we talk about actual stuff people are doing, because theory doesn't appeal to me much. And that's what she's saying, that we just get into through an intuitive way, and we don't like it's not very feminine to keep on going into theory, and it feels so dry. Then she talks about another quality. At the same time, women have a nurturing, a softness, a gentleness. Women tend to be more into feeling than men, which makes it easier to develop bodhicitta. Loving kindness is innate in women because of the mothering factor. A mother is prepared to die for a child. That impulse can be developed towards all beings. Again, it's a matter of feeling, not intellect. These are not just useful qualities, they are essential. This is really true. I especially see it in all these housewives of India, like the older generation who were dedicated to the homes and to the families. They are very emotional, they have emotional strength, which is really awesome. I feel this is very true for them. Like they feel through things. Then she says female spiritual energy is also very quick, like Tara. You don't have to be a great yogi to communicate with Tara. She's there. Like a mother, she has to be very quick because she can't wait until her child has reached a certain level before she gives it her attention and compassion. She has to be right there with it from the moment it's born, a little wriggling worm. Whether it's a good child or a bad child, she's there to help. And then women can often attain the experience of Tumo often more swiftly than men. She said, talking about the famous inner mystic heat that can be raised through meditation. Tumo is basically a mystic heat within our system, which a lot of yogis will raise. That's how we see a lot of yogis, even in the high mountains, they are roaming around in a loin cloth. They have vibhuti covered everywhere because they are generating that inner heat. It's something to do with our physiology. Milarepa had a lot of trouble getting heat and bliss, whereas his woman disciple Rechungma got all the experience in 3 days. So many lamas have said that women are especially good at tumo. Not only can they generate the bliss, they are able to handle it better as well. For myself, however, I cannot claim to be a tumo yogini. It wasn't my main practice. If women had their strong points, it followed that they should also have their failings. The biggest and most insidious stigma attributed to women on the spiritual path was their menstrual cycle, the curse. This, in the eyes of the male priests in most religions throughout the world, was what rendered women unclean and therefore unsuitable candidates for higher spiritual office. Consequently, at the time when a period was upon her, it was decreed in many parts of the world that a woman may not enter the sanctity of the temple, nor may any priest touch her. This reproachment was certainly an obstacle to be overcome if her body was to incarnate the divine. On a more profound and serious level, to the serious female practitioner, her period was said to create havoc with her meditations, bringing with it irritability, irrationality, pain, and PMT, all of which supposedly disturbed her concentration and peace of mind. Her period thus became one of her greatest hindrances to full spiritual development. This is also very interesting and a very open articulation of the whole menstrual situation. Tenzin Palmo, having trod the path, was having none of it. Hormones were no obstacle to me. Personally, I've never been affected by my periods, and I think that all this talk about menopause and PMT is just making an issue of it. Besides, I have noticed that men are often more moody than women. All humans fluctuate in their moods. That doesn't mean you have to cling to it, she said in her usual pragmatic way. So, this is, of course, covering it in short. There are a lot of other nuances because, especially in Indian religious environment, there have been a lot of rituals where women have been involved. And so, there is a lot of detail that we can go into about it. So she goes further to say, one Lama did tell me, however, that women's main problem is that they have a volatile mind. It swings up and down, which makes it more difficult to attain steadiness in meditation. But he also added that when a woman learns to check that energy, she can go very fast in her practice, much quicker than men, because there's this fund of energy which has not been dissipated. In fact, many lamas have said that once women get going on meditation, their experiences are much more rapid and higher than most men's. But again, because women weren't into writing books or publicizing it, you don't hear about them. That additional major drawback, women's craving for physical comfort, didn't apply to Tenzin Palmo either. But she was unusual. The grim living conditions, which seem an inescapable part of all advanced spiritual trainings, had blighted many women seekers. Irina Tweedy, the great Sufi teacher and author of Chasm of Fire, the diary of her own spiritual path, admits to being constantly crushed by the searing heat, the noise, and the dust of the Indian village where her guru lived. He had made her give up everything she owned, including her money, which only exacerbated her misery and the discomfort factor further. We women need comfort, we need security, we need love, we need this and that. We women need. In Western society, for a man to give up everything is much easier than for a woman. I know it because I did it myself, so I can speak, she said from her home in North London just before she died. So that's pretty much it. It's a good write up on the whole women's situation. First of all, the lack of inspiration, and secondly, the differences, because a lot of bhajans and spiritual material, even movies and stuff, if they talk about any documentaries, the gender plays quite a big role. The challenges that the male monks are facing, internal challenges as well as external challenges, are very different from what female monks would face. And so this was a very interesting read for me. I really enjoyed it. And yeah. Mm,